Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, hey, hopefully you're doing well. You are ready for the program. And today on the show, it's we're going to change things up just a little bit. Not going to throw you too much, but hey, it's going to be a great show where later on in the program, we will be talking to Derakhshani. He is our computer graphics expert. Anything about CGI, graphics cards, anything, hey, maybe you need help building your newest system, something like that. He is going to be the gentleman to he's certainly going to be able to help you. And he has a lot of great information. We'll have stories and news and things like that, just all related to graphics. It's, it's going to be a fun time, but that's going to be a little bit later in the program. First, though, we're going to do computer and technology news, and we have a ton of different stories, including everything from, you might have heard about this from a day or two ago, we still need to cover it, a man who actually was paying himself to make pizza. And, well, DoorDash, the app, was assisting very much so with this transaction. It's very weird. Also, Apple Glass. You may know, obviously, Apple used to have the old glasses. Well, the new ones, hey, they're out, and we have, we have some insights. There's that. It's, we have everything from, Siri to, of course, iFixit, having a bunch of different products and manuals for fixing ventilators, and which are just oh so needed in these times. And hey, iFixit is certainly one of those that can definitely help. So everyone, sit back, relax. We're going to do computer and technology news in just a moment, but before we do, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including today's show notes. You'll find past shows, future shows, all that and more at computeramerica.com, including the podcast, reviews, articles, videos, links to everything, social media. Find us on social media at Computer America on all of those. And hey, we hope to see you there. Now, let's go ahead, get started with computer and technology news brought to you by Computer America. Now, this one I really liked because I kind of led the, kind of the whole show off with it. But I found it very interesting because DoorDash has been doing this thing lately where they take it upon themselves to, and I'm not sure if it's, kind of by request of like the locals, and they say, hey, DoorDash, you don't have XYZ restaurant on your service, you should really get them on. And then they do some kind of very, very poor due diligence and put them on their service, and they do a lot of wonky stuff. They do everything from making up their own prices to inputting information and essentially agreeing that this restaurant, like, they kind of take it for an assumption that restaurants want to work with DoorDash, and so they make entire pages for DoorDash. Now, check this one out. This is how this gets a little bit weird, and it's pretty darn cool. Man makes money buying his own pizza on DoorDash app. Check that out. Saying that the owner of a pizza restaurant, they say that the owner of a pizza restaurant has discovered that DoorDash delivery app has been selling his food cheaper than he does, while still paying him full price for the orders. Think about that. So they set their own price. They brought the price of his pizza down, and well, there you go. They said that a pizza for which he charged about $24 for was being advertised as $16 on DoorDash, and while and of course, then he did something that, he never put himself up there. He never asked to be on the app, and here's what happened. He secretly ordered it himself. The app paid his restaurant the full $24 while charging him only $16 to have it made. There you go. And he had not asked to be put on the app. He later found out that it was part of a trial to gauge customer demand. And he said that content strategist Ranjan Roy blogged about the anonymous restaurateur who is his friend, saying that he first heard about the situation in March 2019, and when his friend started receiving complaints about deliveries, even though his outlets did not deliver. And this is how a lot of restaurants unfortunately find out that they've been put on DoorDash, is when they start to receive a lot of negative reviews, they receive complaints, because, hey, if everything goes well, you don't call back up your delivery driver and say, hey, that was really tasty. Hey, restaurant, that was really good. Thanks so much. No, people only call when something goes wrong. And that's how, again, unfortunately, these companies find out that they are on this service. He said that he discovered that he had been added to DoorDash and noticed that it was charging lower prices for his premium pizzas. So he ordered just order free money. He ordered 10 pizzas, paid $160, and had them delivered to a friend's house. The restaurant was then paid $240 for the order. You can see here, hey, that's $80 out of DoorDash's pocket and into the restaurant's pocket. They said that, the next time the restaurant prepared his friend's order by boxing up the pizza without any toppings, maximizing the profit for the mismatched prices, saying, I was genuinely curious if DoorDash would catch on, but they didn't. He said that we found out afterwards that this was all the result of a quote-unquote demand test by DoorDash. They have a test period where they scrape the restaurant's website and don't charge any fees to anyone, so they can ideally go to the restaurant with positive order data to then get the restaurant to sign with the platform. You can see how it's kind of asking for forgiveness instead of permission. They go ahead and do it, and then they go at these restaurants and say, hey, look at all this service that we've drummed up for you. You should really sign with us. They said that they said that the third-party delivery platforms, as they've been built, just seem like the wrong model. But instead of testing, failing, and evolving, they've been subsidizing into market dominance. Which, so many other industry services like that. That's something that happens all the dang time. To give you an instance of this, let's take a very, very famous one that everyone would know. Twitter. I'm sure you've heard of Twitter. The president of the United States uses Twitter. A lot of people use Twitter, hundreds of millions. And it's a very, very popular social media platform. Some people who dive too deeply into Twitter feel like it is their pulse on society, even though it is very much a little echo chamber like so many other online platforms. But I digress. The point I'm trying to make is that Twitter didn't turn a profit for about 12 years. And then when they finally did, it wasn't that much profit. Certainly not enough to, recoup all their costs for the previous 12 years. And, they're still paying down what are essentially giant burning piles of venture capital money. The delivery apps are doing the exact same thing. To cite this, by the way, this whole article is from BBC News. DoorDash is backed by the investment giant SoftBank, which this week posted a record-breaking loss of $13 billion. I'm sure that they mean SoftBank itself posted about $13 billion in loss. And yeah, it's, defending the loss, the chief executive, Masayoshi Son, reportedly compared himself to Jesus, saying that the billionaire is said to have stated during a call with investors that Jesus was also misunderstood, and he later apologized, I guess saying that he knew something that others didn't. Jesus was misunderstood in his time, so is this billionaire throwing burning piles of cash at these startups. And again, just like Twitter, now we can't really imagine a social media landscape that doesn't include Twitter, just like we can't imagine one that doesn't include Facebook or any of the others. But it took many, many years of not turning a profit, not being a successful business, and even more so if you try to think of like a competitive playing field. Imagine if one of these billionaire investment firms does not take a liking to you. You have zero chance of surviving in this market, which is how right now you have like DoorDash, Postmates, so many other ones out there. We don't have a favorite at all. So all these different delivery apps, Grubhub as well, none of them are turning a profit. And if any of them try to turn a profit, they will be priced out of the market because, hey, being able to sustain yourself isn't really the purpose of these companies. The purpose is to drive their competitors out of the market and then be the only game in town, and then hopefully be able to charge enough money to make their money back and then some, that these venture capital funds really strive for. So there you go. Waiting in the wings also patiently is Dariush Derakhshani, and we're going to bring him on in just a moment. But just want to finish up this article saying that, again, the whole point of it was that a gentleman was buying his own pizzas for, about a 50% profit, paying $16. Grubhub was then giving the restaurant $24, and he was ordering himself a lot of pizzas. And, it just seems, again, like they were doing trials and testing and data collection so that they could then approach the restaurants and convince them to sign on with the platform. It's overall great for consumers. Let's put it that way. Another company, another example of companies that are just huge pits of money funded by venture capital, MoviePass. If anyone was part of that grand experiment, that they were essentially giving away movies. You pay like $10 a month and you got to see as many movies as you want. At one point, it was cheaper for 1 month of MoviePass than it was to see a single movie. So, and of course, people were then going out watching 5-10 different movies. And then on top of that, well, hey, they changed their scheme as much as they could, but as soon as they tried to make themselves profitable, no go. The whole company folded, and it wasn't possible. Venture capital it's a whole industry, and it's pretty crazy. So there you go. DoorDash, no different. And hey, we'll include a link to that in the show notes a little bit later. So in the meantime, Dariush Derakhshani, as I said before, he is Computer America's computer graphics expert. He knows everything about the industry. He's worked in television, movies, and of course he teaches, he teaches by day and works in the industry as well. And I got to say that, we haven't talked to him for a little while, and I want to know how he's holding up in these trying times. And I actually heard some interesting news yesterday on the radio that I want to get his opinion on as well. But hey, let's introduce him, bring him on, and then we'll start our conversation. So everyone, once again, Dariush Derakhshani, admit him into the room, and hopefully everything goes well. There we go. Dariush, obviously you're muted, but Dariush, welcome onto Computer America. How you doing?
I am doing great. How about you?
There we go. Perfect. You sound great. I'm glad everything worked without testing. That's the due diligence that they expect from Computer America. But
Yeah, right.
You sound great. Everything's great. I'm doing very, very well. How you doing?
Good. I haven't left the house, but I shaved today, so that's a good thing.
Definitely, definitely.
But
Oh
you know,
yeah, we got your video. Perfect. We'll put that up here in just a moment. But yeah, and obviously, as I said before, you're a professor out in California, I believe.
mhm.
Been a while since we updated your your spiel, but obviously classes all over the country have been canceled. Everyone's been sent home. Everyone's doing Zoom meetings, Skype calls, whatever. That
Yep.
kind of thing. How has the transition been working from home?
Good. A little exhausting. Being on Zoom calls all day. All my classes have been on Zoom. I was just on Zoom for the last 2.5 hours, and
Glad I could pull
we'll
you
be
into
on
another one.
Zoom. Right. We'll be on more Zoom after our show here. So yeah, it's a little exhausting, but I don't have to drive anywhere,
A little
which
bit
is
of a
kind of
benefit,
nice.
yeah. And of course, all this, all this being said, the thing that I heard yesterday on the news that I was kind of alluding to, and I found it very interesting, where obviously working in Hollywood and a lot of these other projects. Before it was sound stages, and it was actors and directors and casting and extras and blah 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 all getting onto the same getting onto the same lot and producing something. And they said that that has obviously halted for the past 3 4
Hmm.
months. Production on every project. If you're wondering why Wonder Woman premiere came and went without Wonder Woman, yeah, all everything has stopped except for what I hear, animation, voice acting for animation. That seems to be like a lot of projects kind of got put on hold that had to require actual people, but voice actors can record their lines from home. Animators can work on projects together collaboratively from their home. Have you heard or seen? And obviously, you work in the. Have you? Has workflow really changed that much for CGI and projects like that?
Yeah, one of the biggest barriers to doing work like this at home are security issues. There's a lot of security that has to go around one of these projects. So shots and things from an Avengers movie, for example, don't make their way to the media before they're supposed to. So that's one of the big barriers, and a few places have been really good about figuring out how to secure people's home workspaces. But by and large, yeah, a lot of things have ground to a halt. Um, Recording at home, I mean, providing you've got a recording booth, a professional level studio, you could, but by and large, a lot of things are on hold. And project that I've been producing has been on hold, and we're actually going to be meeting a little bit later today to discuss options for when the studio reopens. So while it seems a no-brainer that we should use this experience to enable more people to work remotely
Mm-hmm.
and to change some of the security settings or implement better security um, procedures for people such as myself working at home. So yeah, it's kind of a mess.
Mm-hmm.
A few things are still being produced, but by and large, a lot of stuff is sort of ground to a
Well,
halt.
yeah, and obviously thinking of all the different guests that we've had on the show and how to get data transferred securely and make sure that no one is on. And I'm assuming that some of these projects, I'm sure you could correct me, dozens if not hundreds of people in different systems are utilized in the whole production. I guess it would just take like one person to accidentally click a link, one person to
Yep.
open it on their personal computer instead of their work computer.
Yep.
Security is not foolproof from home.
No, no, it isn't. It's barely foolproof in a studio, and these are very tight, understandably tight restrictions. So moving it to home, you're making it much more difficult because you don't have a physical um, oversight of that facility. You
Right.
know, so I can understand that, but I think um, there are places to meet in the middle, and I think from this experience, new technologies are going to be born to allow more people to work from home, even if there's no zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, luckily that has not happened, and I think even then, I think the production of big budget movies and animation is probably going to be secondary to not being eaten. That would be probably my thing,
True.
my thinking as well. And I'm trying to think of some of the past movies that had been leaked, and of course the first thing that jumps to my mind is things like The Interview. I think, although that was hacked by Sony. Sony had a number of films that were hacked
Yep.
off of their system, pulled. And although I gotta say that like you said, the traditional way of doing it was barely containing the problem. If I recall those issues, it was they were outsourcing animation. They were outsourcing CGI and animation to firms in India, and it was from those firms that unfinished, kind of like production material was then being leaked, and in some cases the entire movie with only minor tweaks to be made to the finished movie.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly a possibility. Sure, a lot of breaches came from all over the world, all over the
Hmm.
states as well. If a hacker, it's like a car thief. If a car thief really wants your car, they're going to get your car.
Right.
So if a hacker really wants your data and knows what they're looking for, they're going to get it. These are all efforts to reasonably mitigate stupid stuff. Like I want to make a couple extra bucks. I'm going to put this on my USB key and take it over to TMZ when I'm done with my shift.
Right.
So stuff like that. These restrictions are good. I mean, it's a good security protocol to have. I think the evolution of that is going to be a good byproduct of this
Mm.
because some of the VFX houses, some of the animation houses, the more flexible they are to remote, the better they're going to be able to weather these things, but also to attract talent
Yeah.
that is not willing to relocate to their studio.
There have already been a number of companies. I think
Hmm.
Twitter was the one I'm thinking about. Twitter was the first company, at least major company, to say that all of their employees are working from home permanently. And I don't think that was accompanied by any major layoffs. It was just more, this is working. It's more convenient, and for
Hmm.
at least for the foreseeable future, this is the best way to conduct business. So. I,
Yeah.
I, I can see where you're coming from, and hopefully we don't have pandemics all that often, going forward. And like you said, I have seen such an amazing transition of technology and services, mostly in like the food scene. Like before
Yeah.
getting food delivered to your door, it was pizza, Chinese, and maybe a few others. Now almost everyone is delivering,
Anything. Yeah.
and it happened very quickly. It really goes to show that with enough market stress, what is possible. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the food industry has done a great job in trying to tackle this. They're obviously hurting really badly,
hmm
but it is nice to be able to get a sandwich delivered.
yeah, there have, and of course this is going to be on a local level for a lot of people. There have been some closures here, but it's been very nice to be able to support. Uh, Especially like our local favorite restaurants, and see that they have a
Yeah.
very active online presence now, where before it was like, hey, we're a local place, come on in or don't, whatever. Now they're like, yeah, come to our website, deliver, we deliver. um Very, very different. And so, with
Hmm.
that being said, I have a couple of different articles here. I'm sure that you have topics in mind as well, but I thought I would start off the conversation. And, there's a couple of different ways we could take it. We have an article here about Apple Glass. And speaking of leaks, details were leaked about the $500 prescription glasses from Apple that will be augmented reality. So, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Sorry about that. But I think the first one, maybe you saw this one, Darius. Obviously, we're going to talk about why this didn't make a lot more news, but it's the A100 chip from Nvidia. And I don't know if you had a chance to look at how powerful this thing is. I want to emphasize that it's not for general consumers, but I did, hey, it's the latest product from Nvidia, and that's worth talking about on our segment here. So, did you have a chance to check out the A100 Tensor Core GPU?
Yeah, very, very briefly. But it doesn't surprise me that a lot of the effort, a lot of the acceleration is going to AI and machine learning.
Yeah.
That's a key point of the computing market.
Yeah, and just like you said, A100, if anyone out there would like to check it out, we'll have a link in the show notes. But NVIDIA A100 Tensor Core, and just like you said, it is for multi-instance GPU, which sounds great. Sounds like something that every graphic designer or video game player would definitely love. Multiple GPUs, that's great.
But it's
And
not quite in
yeah,
that way. Yeah,
that's what I want to get into. Yeah.
it's more for industrial scale computing, modeling, not so much like modeling a character for a movie, but data modeling and data visualization and data analytics. It's much more scaled towards that, and I don't think it's going to improve your frame rate for Rainbow Six so much.
Unfortunately, and admittedly, this one looks like a beast. I think that if I recall, and they actually had the CEO of Nvidia. And by the way, just a side note about this whole pandemic thing and big releases like the one for Nvidia, it's very interesting being able to see inside people's homes. You got to see inside the kitchen of the CEO of Nvidia. Great. He had like Tuscan marble all over it. It was beautiful. But I digress. He had he had this thing, and it was about the size of like a tray of cookies. Makes sense because he was in the kitchen, and he actually put it in the oven and baked it up to like 200 degrees or something like that to show almost like a stress test how much heat this thing could really stand or I'm sorry, withstand inside a data center. And it was again about the size of a tray of cookies, maybe about 6 inches tall, very, very wide. The whole thing was about $1 million for just one of the racks. Because obviously there were like 10 of these A100s all slotted into it, and it was about $1 million for one of those. And I guess his whole point was saying was that this $1 million I guess kind of installation had enough computing power to compete with something that used to take multiple entire server racks, and now they could do it essentially in a single blade. It was very impressive just how efficient these things are getting.
Yeah, I got a hats off to Nvidia for figuring out how to miniaturize year over year, and the A100 is one of the I guess successors to the P100.
Mm-hmm.
So it's much the same. It's more of a compute sort of thing. It'll do wonders for hardware rendering. So if there is a day where we have a game that's entirely ray traced that can use a tensor core, like on the A100, then you would get an amazing experience. But by and large, not so much for the end user.
Now, the reason a second reason that I bring this up is because of the architecture, and I know that I've talked about this with other correspondents about the architecture, and actually, I know that we talked about it with you when it comes to CPUs, and the fact that Intel, I think, is releasing another 14 nanometer CPU. I need to. It's like Comet Lake, I think, is what they're calling it, or something like that. I have an article here saying that, Comet Lake S, by the way, is the latest Intel one, and AMD had a response with lowering the prices, which is all well and good. But anyways, 14 nanometer architecture, NVIDIA, with this GPU, they were saying that a lot of these efficiencies and a lot of the performance increases happened because of the 7 nanometer. I don't want to say that they've got it licked, they haven't perfected it, because this is only something that's in a $100,000, chipset, but
Yeah.
they're working on it. They're working very hard on getting it down to 7 nanometers. That's exciting.
Yeah. No, that's miniaturization. That's the way to go. Your efficiencies are going to improve a lot more than packing, more
Stacking as
into the
well.
same.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, um, yeah, I gave up waiting for a smaller die size when I went with my Skylake. No,
You got the
whatever the
9900, right?
9900.
Yeah.
Right? Is that Skylake?
I think there's been Coffee Lake, Sky
Or
Lake, and a
KB
million other
Lake
lakes.
or Lakey
Yeah.
Lake or Ricky Lake? I don't know. But yeah, that's why I gave up and just went with a 9900 because I know this is going to take Intel a little
Yeah.
bit of time.
Yeah, it definitely will. But I think when this technology eventually trickles down to, instead of because I think Nvidia was working with 10 nanometer before this, and now they're shrinking it down to 7. AMD has famously been doing 7 for, quite a while now.
Hmm.
And it's, their performance to price is, something that I just helped a friend build a new gaming computer. Try to keep the budget around $1,200, and I gotta say, for $1,200 when it came to the graphics card and the CPU, AMD can't be beat. It was
Yeah.
there was no real discussion to be had for. Unfortunately, for what Intel is, still doing, like they're still like top end Intel still there, but middle, but like the middle, I think where most people and beginning enthusiasts kind of land,
Yeah.
AMD has been kicking butt.
Yeah. The best bang for the buck
Yeah,
for that price range. AMD's always, always, always held on to that ground for as long as I've known them. As far as video cards go, at least.
yeah. There you go. The CPU market they completely ceded for
Yeah, for
seven
quite
eight
a
years.
while
Yeah.
until the Ryzen came out, and
Mm-hmm.
then that woke everybody up. But as far as video cards go, they've always been able to put the best price to performance ratio
That's true.
for the cards. They've never had a great, amazing, super duper fast card in comparison to, the top end of the
Right.
GeForce line, but they've always come in with the best price.
Yeah, and by the way, just to wrap up this A100, if you want to check out some of the specs there, 9.7 teraflops of peak FP64, whatever the heck that is. I think it's teraflops of operations. So let's see, 19.5 teraflops of peak FP tensor core. The big point here is they're measuring this thing in teraflops. It's incredible how fast this thing can go. So there you go. Okay, so moving on from that, and by the way, actually speaking about helping my friend with that computer build, and I got to say, Dariush, that when it comes to me, I'm always like, it's for work. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. I can spend whatever I want, whatever the best. That's what I'm going to need. And, that honestly takes a lot of the thinking out of building and designing these computers. And I got to say that when it came to designing like a $1,300 computer, I we looked at everyone from HP to Dell to Samsung, I think, as well, and a couple other pre-built and pre-manufactured ones. Here's what I didn't realize. You can save a lot of money if you get a little dirty with, I shouldn't put it that way. If you get a little hands-on with your computer, you can save a lot of money, in particular to swapping out the hard drive, adding a secondary hard drive, changing out your RAM as opposed to letting them upgrade your RAM for you. And that was pretty much it. Just hard drive and RAM were two big things where, like, Dariush, that's like, let's take for instance the RAM upgrade. They were going to upgrade from 8 gigs up to 16 gigs, and it was going to be $150 for the increase. And I went on to Amazon, nowhere very special, and
Yeah.
a 16 gig stick or 8 gigs, so it's 16 gig of RAM. At faster, it was 2666 megahertz versus 3200 megahertz. Faster RAM, better RAM for $140 without, so it was like $10 cheaper than the upgrade, and it was 140 for the entire RAM set.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to see a lot of room to save money. Hard drive, especially SSDs. SSDs still get quite a premium if you upgrade through a PC vendor.
Hmm.
The only thing that you have to be careful of would be your warranty. If for some reason you can avoid a warranty, if you open up that case and throw your own RAM or disk drive in there, which I don't think you would, but you might want to check it before you do that.
Here at Computer America, we don't recommend you take any advice. Contact a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. Break your warranties. I really don't care because I've opened up my iPhone a number of times to fix it. It has saved me a lot of money. I've opened up my own computers, I've opened up my own laptops. Void the warranties. The warranties are really very, very rarely, and you can speak to your own experience, but I gotta say, to my experience, warranties very rarely are there to help you. You know what I mean? The warranties are more there to either preserve their, later investment, like, assisting you and charging you for customer support later on down the road. Very rarely has a warranty policy really been in my best interest.
Yeah, I've warranted components before because I don't buy a box. I make stuff myself.
Hmm.
But as far as laptops go, that's where I mean, you obviously can't do a whole lot of upgrades to your laptop. So
Right?
that's one case that, yeah, keeping
Yeah.
the warranty is probably a decent idea. But I'm kind of with you. I don't buy into that necessarily. But
like I'll still pay the $20 for like the extended warranty. Where like if the whole thing just fries out of nowhere, I'll get my money back. That's something I definitely
sure,
I definitely like. But the whole pay us $100 a year and we'll warranty everything. Blah blah blah. And like you said, don't open up the case or else we're gonna void you. Some things are easy fixes, some things are easy upgrades, and to your
yeah,
point, laptops are really, I think, only like some hard drives and some RAMs that are the same form
some,
factor
yeah,
are easy upgrades. Everything else with the laptop is a nightmare.
yeah,
So I can
agreed.
agree with you on that. And actually, by the way, that reminds me, one of my other employees here at the show, they just bought a laptop and they did exactly that. They're upgrading the hard drive and the RAM, and they're doing a little tear down, pictures, review, that kind of thing. Um,
Nice.
because Dariush, having experts such as yourself here on the show, sometimes I forget that a lot of people are afraid to open up their own cases.
Yes.
They're concerned that upgrading RAM is a very difficult thing to do. So sometimes having those basic how tos with pictures, those are necessary. So we'll have that up on the website
Yeah,
eventually.
no, that is. Yeah. I remember back in the day I had an Apple IIe and I upgraded the RAM in that, and that involved using a chip inserted to actually insert
Press it
each
in. Yeah.
chip in sets of 8. Yeah, it was crazy. Crazy
And
stuff.
of course soldering and all that good stuff. Like, yeah, I'm luckily
Yeah.
things have gotten a lot easier than that. So
Much easier.
yeah,
Yeah, they have.
for sure. And so the other topic I want to bring up, because we don't have a specific article for this, but I wanted to bring it up to you, that I've been seeing more and more people talk about ray tracing. Obviously, RTX cards have been out for a generation or two now. People are looking to upgrade their computers, and where maybe they weren't very interested in RTX, now it's becoming: do I get an RTX card, or do I get something that supports ray
Get an
tracing,
RTX card.
or not
Get an
ray
R
tracing? Yes,
get ray tracing.
you
Get it.
you have been famously pro ray tracing. I gotta say though, I have been seeing this conversation held online, either on Reddit or Twitch or social media, Facebook, Twitter, or whatever, and people are still confused. Like, obviously, they're not listening to the show because hey, they would know what's going on, but they're
Mhm.
still arguing: is RTX a gimmick? Is it something that's is it kind of like 3D? Is it kind of like VR that's not really all that important? You're shaking your head. For everyone out there who can't see, Dariush is
Nope.
furiously
It is a
shaking his head. I
it's
wanted
a
you to
fundamental evolution.
I wanted you to give a quick introduction to what RTX is, and then I just wanted to reiterate this point because, again, I'm seeing the conversation and so many, and I'm even seeing. I like to think that they're trolls. The internet is full of trolls, people who will be
Yeah.
contrarians to the end of their lives just to get a
Yep.
rise out of you. But there are people who legitimately think that RTX is fluff. It is nothing to really look at. Yeah. So I wanted a quick rundown. What is RTX? Why do you like it so much? And is it a gimmick?
Now, when you say RTX, do you mean ray tracing in general, or do
Real
you
time
mean
ray
the
tracing, because
GeForce?
because
Yeah,
RTX is the nomenclature for what Nvidia says is real time ray tracing capable. I
right.
guess I should say real time ray tracing capable graphics cards.
Um, Hands down, without a doubt, I'm a very neurotic guy. I try to be measured in what I say, but without a doubt, this is an evolutionary step in gaming graphics and in graphics in general. We've been on ray tracing for almost 20 years in the industry. It's the standard for what makes an image looks good coming out of CG.
Right.
Basically, what it does is it calculates how light works more physically accurately than before. With things that are not ray tracing, they approximate how light bounces, they approximate or they fake reflections. With ray tracing, you get a much more real photo photo accurate result when it comes to reflections, light bouncing, and refractions. Those three things have the capability of making your game, as it is right now, look a crap ton better in the shortest amount of time. Because, your scene is set up and glass in your current game or water in your current game, everything's faked in there. But as
Hmm.
soon as you enable ray tracing, it's going to look so much more real. You'll be able to see yourself or your other characters moving around in reflections. But also, you remember when HDR came into the mix with games
High dynamic
several.
range and more colors, and yeah.
Right. So part of high dynamic range was being able to light your scene with an HDR image to give you a more natural quality. That is one of the fundamental things that it needs is ray tracing for it to really look good. And Unreal Engine 4.25
Hmm.
is going to support ray tracing as opposed to uh, multi-screen and adding a universal scene descriptor coming out of Pixar to help sort of manage and merge all the different platforms that people are creating content on. But the key, my key takeaway, it supports ray tracing for content creators and eventually also for content consumers.
Hmm.
Without a doubt, your next video card should support ray tracing. Now, whether some standards are going to shift or change, like OpenGL versus OpenCL versus CUDA and all that kind of stuff, I don't know. But as a general, ray tracing is the next evolution in computer graphics at the consumer level because it was the revolution in generating computer graphics 20 some years ago when it became much more accessible to render with ray tracing enabled.
Yeah, it's and that's what I don't partake in a lot of these conversations, but whenever I do get my word in, I got to say that um, the point that I make is that it's not just a gimmick because, like you said,
Mm-mm.
everything's fake. They try to um, they try to make the game look as best they can by faking this technology. As soon as it can happen in real time, and the technology can handle it, everything's just going to look better because
Better.
they don't have to fake it, they don't have to do tricks, they don't have to see that when you look in a glass pane that you don't see your reflection. It's just kind of a reflective glass surface that they've just pasted over that particular part of the level.
Exactly.
um,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. We have a saying in graphics, in computer graphics, the final 10% of the beauty in an image
Hmm.
involves 90% of the work. Getting that little tiny bit of nuance into an image is what makes people respond much better to that image. And this is one of the things that ray tracing is going to bring subtle things that make a huge impact in the overall experience of how you see that game visually.
And really makes a lot of sense. And I'm trying to find here, furiously trying to find it. There was a tech demo from Nvidia where they showed off the Unreal Engine. I want to say Unreal Engine 5. That might be what I'm looking for. Tech demo, and ray tracing was, of course, a big part of that. And actually, I finally found it here, and we're gonna have this playing in the background eventually. There we go. So let's go ahead and mute the sites, hit play. There's a lot of commentary there with the developers where they're pointing out a lot of what's happening behind the scenes and what's happening here. And I don't know if you had a chance to catch the Unreal Engine 5 demo that we're kind of showing off in the background, Dariush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and really one thing that they showed off here was, they kind of, for everyone listening on the radio, it's kind of like a slope with a bunch of rocks and things like that. They're zooming into it. The textures, photorealism came up a number of times. The phrase photorealism came up a lot. And another part was the polygon count. They're able to use artificial intelligence, another buzzword, and essentially they can kind of make the scaffolding of a rock, and they can kind of give it a texture. And instead of it just having this, let's say someone programmed 200 polygons, you can see an image there of all the texture stripped away, and that's all the polygon count. The AI is able to then turn a basic shape into something with a billion different polygons, and due to some of the computing behind the scenes, they're able to render all of those, and much like the distortion with JPEGs and things like that, the compression, they're able to compress whatever's not being seen, but fully render and utilize it. So essentially, things that would have taken forever, like you would never take a rock and say, I need to put a 10 million polygons in this rock to make it look really good, act right with the physics and all that kind of thing. Now AI is doing that for them in Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah, I think that ends up being more of a level of detail issue, where the closer you get, the more it subs in
I think
a
so.
higher poly version or a higher tessellation rendering. Because you can set that up in geometry, is to give it a tessellation and change the tessellation over time. So if you're getting close to something, you go from having 150 polygons to having 15,000 polygons when you're closer to it.
That's actually the exact phrase. The nanites virtualized micropolygon geometry frees artists to create as much geometric detail as the eye can see. It means that the film quality source art comprising hundreds of millions or billions of polygons can be imported directly into Unreal Engine. So there you go.
Yeah. There's a lot of buzzwords, but yeah, LOD.
Yeah.
Level of detail. That's exactly what it is, but they're using geometry instead of image resolution.
Right, and of course this was a showcase for people who will be eventually developing on Unreal Engine 5. Like this whole thing, like it looks like a video game, but really it's just an engine, kind of an engine showcase to show what it can do. And one of them is of course the lighting. They say that the system renders diffuse inter-reflection with infinite bounces and indirect specular reflections and huge detailed environments, which, like you said, that all sounds like buzzwords yet again for ray tracing. Essentially, light's going to act like how light acts.
Yeah, exactly. All of these are dependent on ray tracing. And essentially, just a layman's explanation of what ray tracing is, it actually traces the path of a light ray from the light source to an object, the reflection off of that object to the camera, or vice versa. I forget if it starts at the camera or if it starts at the light source, but it actually traces that path. And then it can figure out exactly how good your shadows are going to be, because shadows in ray tracing are a bazillion times better than shadow maps, which are faked. So there's that as well. And that you saw in the rocks, shadows it was like sunlight.
Yeah.
And that's what ray tracing gives you the basis to do.
Yeah, that's what they're showing off here with obviously the main character holding a sphere of light in her hand, and all of this is actual gameplay. This looks kind of like a cinematic where,
Hmm.
traditionally your character would walk around a somewhat illuminated area with an orb of light in their hand. This is that light actually looks like it's giving off light of its own, and that's
Yeah,
the
it's
point.
lighting the environment itself. Yeah, exactly. As opposed to a pre-lit environment. I mean, back in the day, we used to see things that were lit, and then that lighting was baked into the texture map,
Hmm.
and then the texture map was applied and lighting removed. So you're actually looking at no lighting in a scene. You're just looking at pure textures.
Right.
So, I mean, we've come a long way in a short amount of time, and seeing the precipice of real-time ray tracing is really exciting. I think it's got a long way to go before it can become very accurate and very real time,
But
but
it's good enough
there's
that
a lot
people
of hope.
should but it's good enough that people should start to take notice and
It's not a
be ready for it.
gimmick. It's not going away. Ray
Yeah.
tracing is not going away.
Yeah, and of course the last part of this whole tech demo is the character dies. No, the character falls
No.
over and starts doing some Prince of Persia type stuff. And essentially, what they're showing here is like the whole stone palace kind of deal is starting to disintegrate, and this is all real time gameplay. And essentially, it's
Mhm.
showing how they can like chaotically, randomly have assets kind of destroy themselves and break apart and that kind of thing. So it's Unreal Engine 5. I was very impressed with the demo, and I know that it's just a tech demo, and this is not a game. There's a lot of future to be had here, but hey, it's the tools, and Unreal's very famous for if people want to go out and try it themselves, you can download it, play with it
Mhm.
yourself. They even said here in the article that they waived the first $1 million. So hey, make your million, and then of course then they want their cut. But it's pretty cool.
It's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm very excited for it.
For sure, for sure. So, with that being said, man, we have less than 10 minutes left. A lot of different topics that we can talk about here. We can talk about Apple Glass, or Darius, if you had a topic you wanted to discuss yourself.
Yeah, no, let's jump into Apple Glass.
Yeah, Apple Glass. So, first reaction, what was your initial Apple Glasses came out? Man, 5, 6 years ago. That was the goofy one that kind of had a lot of people freaked out on. That people were afraid that by putting a camera on your face, everyone was being recorded, and people were were asked to leave restaurants. They were asked to leave public places because they were wearing Apple Glasses. I just linked you to the article. We'll have a link in the show notes to the article. But this is by Apple Insider, and they were able to get a hands on, kind of, what, and not this particular model that this gentleman is holding in this, kind of clip. But yeah, they have renders, and they have renders. They have not copyrights. Proposals what this thing's going to look like, and we're going to talk about some of the things. But again, first off, Darius, what was your reaction to the initial Apple glasses?
Well, first of all, is my concern, is my face going to be compatible with Apple glasses? Because who knows? They may restrict it to certain types of Apple approved faces. But kidding aside, I'm a proponent of AR in a lot of different places, and I think they could be very, very helpful educationally and very helpful, like for example, in the people with autism or
Mm-hmm.
on the autism spectrum, for example, to give them social cues in real time. Um, but I would hate to walk into a restaurant and have everybody have Apple glasses on. This is a Black Mirror episode, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't relish the fact that there's going to be cameras everywhere. I don't relish the fact that people are going to have text messages and stuff scrolling by while they're talking to me. So
YouTube videos, and yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's hard enough getting my son to actually respond to a single stream of information and give up the other 12 things that he's watching or doing at the same time. So I don't know, and that might be just because I'm old.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'm not a big fan of this being a socially accepted thing like phones are now.
So
Everybody's got one. You're doing stuff on your phone all the time.
so
Putting glasses on to do that? I don't know.
and something that I think a lot of people really overestimate, and this is study after study, time after time again, people think they're better multitaskers than they think they are. They think that they can text and drive, which is incredibly stupid. People think that they
Stupid.
can listen to the TV and hold a conversation at the same time, which if you've
Yep,
ever
stupid.
watched or if you ever talked to someone watching TV, man, they do one or the other. They don't do both. Um, you're right. This is going to be yet another way to display information that will divide people's attention. And like I said before, it's going to be on one place or another. It's either going to be on their glasses, on information that you can't see, or it's yeah, or it's just going to be completely useless altogether. Now I gotta
Yeah, I'm
say, oh,
not a fan
yeah.
of it. Yeah, without a specific use case.
Yeah, and you gave a couple of great use cases there for medical style things, and I think that the Apple glasses, the eyeglasses or whatever the heck they were called back in the day, when those things first came out, I think that was the resounding, um, you know, because it was like you paid $1,000 and you were the guinea pig, and that was the overall data coming back from it was they're an interesting product looking for good use because there
Hmm.
was no clear use case for these things. Just real quick, the Apple Glass, and again, this is all speculation, all from a leaker who's been pretty reputable before with other leaks, and they're saying that it's going to operate much in the way that your Apple Watch works now with your iPhone. You have to have an iPhone to have an Apple Watch. It will display a lot of the same information. They have an image up here showing, a possible, like, let's say you're
Hmm.
walking down the street, in one lens, it will show, in the bottom part of the lens, it will show, Apple Maps, maybe Google Maps, hopefully, but it will show some kind of maps with directions, distance to walk, that kind of thing. Which you could look down at your phone and get the exact same information, but this would be overlaid onto your field of vision. Little things like that.
Yeah, heads up display in my car, things like that. That's pretty cool. I like that. Um, Again, if you're looking for something, if you're playing a game like, with some other people,
Hmm.
that's all well and good. I just rue the day when I'm going to be sitting down next to somebody and they're going to be reading a text while they're looking at me. And that's the sort of thing that I just want to punch somebody in the face for. You know, and
I,
and that's what it's going to lead to. Why do you need your text to come up on your glasses? Why do you need the time or notifications to come up on your glasses? Why can't you
so
look at your phone for that?
so the other instance that we saw of this, and I'm not sure if you're a big Snapchat user, Dariush.
I'm
Um,
not.
well, there you go. So
Mhm.
yeah, but Snapchat had one for content creators, for influencers and the like. That Snapchat is very famous for filming 10-second clips and quick pictures, things like that. And you don't have if something happens, you don't want to reach into your phone, fumble around, and try to catch something that's happening in front of you. They had glasses that you hit a button, it would record something, and then immediately post it to Snapchat.
Mhm. And I hate
Um,
that. I hate that very much. I will
and, well,
campaign against it. It's just
well, it's okay because they didn't catch on. They famously did not sell 99% of their product, and it's sitting in a warehouse somewhere with the Ark of the Covenant. It's in long-term storage. It's
right.
So it didn't catch on there. It might catch on with in the industrial world with construction workers and
Yes,
people and UPS
that's
workers.
great. Yep. Yep.
It might catch on there. It is unproven, and I guess that's the point where we're probably going to leave you with is that it hasn't caught on with consumers, and you have a lot of trepidation over it. I'm sure a lot of other people, parents, no parents, just human minded society people, they probably have just as much trepidation as you do. It's unproven,
I
but
hope so.
Apple keeps trying.
Yeah, and we'll see, but when I see millennials walking around with these things on, all over the neighborhood, that's when I know I've lost the war and I should just back it up.
They're just playing Pokemon Go. That's it. So, and by the way, the leaks here, they if they are to believe, they said that they told the engineers the plans for launch by 2022. So we're still a couple years out as to what these things will actually do. Who are they actually for? Hopefully, all these questions will be answered in the next couple of years. But Apple's still trying. So, but then again, I still have hopes for the Apple Car and the Apple TV. And I mean like the little thing, but like the full-fledged television.
Full-fledged, right.
Apple's not the best at bringing out hardware. So with that being said, Dariush, there's music playing in the background. I want to thank you so much for, very short notice, but it was a lot of fun talking to you. Thank you for your insights. And
thank you.
And hey, overall, I'm happy that you're doing well and this whole thing didn't catch it. So
likewise, yeah.
Yeah.
Take care and be well.
Yeah, and by the way, actually, I did catch coronavirus. That was fun. So.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, CES actually.
Oh.
I caught it from CES. Fun fact.
Yeah,
so,
I can imagine.
I don't recommend it. So everyone out there, stay safe. Dariush, stay safe.
It's not a hoax.
It's not. So, and it's not caused by 5G. Dariush, we'll catch up with you next month, and we'll definitely have you back on.
Take care, Great to see you.
Perfect. And hey, catch you next time. Everyone else out there, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Bye, everyone.